piece. I know that our title belongs to the tenor singers, but so many of you have written to me about wanting to hear from a professional world star baritone. A lot of you want to hear about a lower voice, and thank God that we were able to get not just any baritone, but metropolitan star, internationally renowned Lucas Meachem. Everybody, how are you, Lucas?
Well, with an intro like that, I feel like I could be. I've been accused of being a tenor many times in my life, actually. So
I have seen. Yeah, I've seen in your YouTube. I know that you have also a YouTube channel in which you posted some like reactions to tenor voices, baritone voices. I love all that stuff.
Yeah, no, I love I thought you meant reactions to my YouTube comments.
Oh, well, that too, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, most people know who you are. Obviously, anybody who's in the industry or curious about the industry has heard you sing, has heard about you. I have your bio here just to give a little bit more of what you're up to, if that's okay. Uh, it says that here in the summer, after a summer at Teatro Real, you were singing Sharpless and Madama Butterfly. You did a recital with your wife, Irina Meachem, which is wonderful.
It's coming up.
That's coming up.
Yeah.
That's cutting it up. That's 2024, 2025. So it's coming up here at the Kennedy Center. And you're doing Count di Luna and Houston Grant's opera production of Verdi's Il Trovatore. You're singing at Gran Teatre del Liceu, Comunale di Bologna, La Scala, San Francisco Opera in Bohème. I mean, this guy is everywhere. Obviously, he's the real deal. Lucas, thanks again for coming. You're obviously very busy, so we're going to try to take not too much time from your schedule, but hopefully get a nice, interesting conversation going. Hello, everybody who's starting to join us. Lucas, I kind of like to start these things with kind of opening your brain a little bit about your experience, your methodology, right? This is all about you. There's no wrong answers here. How would you, in the most simplest of terms, describe the baritone voice? Like if you just had to give a couple of words for a young singer who's trying to figure out the baritone voice, what is your sort of approach to that or your methodology when it comes to the baritone voice?
Well, knowing that there are many types of techniques out there, the technique that I use isn't just a baritone technique. So I like to think of there being sort of three facets to the voice: the lower, middle, and upper register, or the passaggio and above. And I like to think, keep it simple in the low and middle, and just sing with your ordinary breath. And then when you get into the passaggio, you need to figure some shit out,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
you said keep it simple, and that's about as simple as I can make it. I don't like to futz around too much in the low. I find that this works for both tenors, basses, and baritones, is that we think, well, I'm going to sound very youthful or very light and bright. And I say, what's wrong with that? If they don't darken the lower, especially a baritone or a bass, a lower voice, the lower you go, the more you want to show. See, I'm not whatever's above you. I'm not this, not that. I'm not a tenor. Basses are like, I'm not a baritone. See, and they just do this over darkened sort of knurtle on the bottom. When I think just keep it in the same line as the middle, and if anything, add a little support to keep it to keep the focus to the sound still going out.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. If anything, some of the stuff that I've been working on in the recent years has been keeping the voice bright. If anything, never allowing it to get overly labored or heavy by trying to add some sort of artificial darkness to it. For tenors, it's absolute death. And so my next question to you is, I know that possibly people think that the tenor voice, the baritone voice are like very two different voices, two complete worlds. I'm not so sure about that. I think it's quite similar, perhaps just a little bit like the function of the voice, the passaggio, the way we sing is quite similar, perhaps just a little bit lower when it comes to when we turn the voice, when we tilt. But what do you think about that? Do you think that it's two voices that are completely different, or do you in any way can actually apply a lot of the things that
it depends on your technique? It depends on your technique, really. It's like le voix humain, it's like the voice, the human voice, For me, I just simply start my passaggio at E natural, and you probably start yours at F sharp or G. You know,
Right.
and
Exactly.
I started E flat if I was slightly lower. In the same way that I'm 6'4" and you're the height that you are, and I have blue eyes and you have brown, I'm born with vocal cords of a certain ability.
Right.
And just because my vocal cords are smaller or larger or longer or skinnier doesn't mean that my technique should change too much. In my opinion, don't get me wrong. I've heard tenors that never cover their voice. Just as they carry up, they keep it like that. They chord, and I've heard it work, but I find that they're outliers more than. And I've heard some people sing, that way. I consider those outliers. When I start to think about these things, I think we're the exact same, except your chords might be a little shorter than mine.
Hmm.
Simply because wait, longer, shorter. I'll just say I can't even think of it
Well,
right.
as we ascend, we would definitely want to be longer and thinner as we ascend. Obviously,
Yeah.
never get short
So
and fat. Yeah.
I mean, exactly. It's like I can't have an arm that's less long than my arm is. It's like you can't change things that you can't change about yourself. And as long as you're true to yourself. And I mean, there are probably some young singers out there thinking, well, I'm still in the cracks. And that's the same. It's like if you're 6'1", you could almost be 6'2", and you could almost be 6 foot.
Hmm.
It's the same thing with your voice. And I've always lived in that crack. If I was a half step higher, I could be a tenor. Half
Yeah.
step, maybe
Right.
a step.
Yeah.
And but I'm closer to that than I am to being a bass. So
Right. 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 Right.
I we're all the same. I think we should all have the same technique. I think there are a few little exceptions, but like for instance, tenors and sopranos, you can modify every vowel to and you just sound great up there. I have to think of modifying my O's to and my E's to instead of just or So yeah, I think
Right.
tenors and sopranos can have one nebu vowel on the top that works for everything.
I love that. I love that. No, I agree 100%. I think we all do have our unique everything, about our voices are definitely unique. We have basic technical foundations, and yes, we also have basic anatomy that we share. We all have a pair of vocal cords, a pair of lungs, but there's a certain uniqueness, I guess, to our sound, to our approach. Everyone's path to their technique is unique as well.
That's
And with that, I wanted to ask, do you experiment with your voice, or at least when you, maybe perhaps not as much now since you have a quite a foundational technique, but in the past, perhaps as you were also developing your voice, do you um, uh, condone? I don't know, condone. No, suggest. Do you suggest experimenting with the voice, going to like the extremes, like trying to figure out how does it sound like to sing completely open and then completely dark, and how does it feel like to play with the larynx, the tongue, the jaw, and just kind of make all these weird, ugly noises to find the relaxation, the right path. Did you do that, or not at all?
100%. Absolutely. The only way you can find the small road is by being on the highway first.
Yeah,
It's
I love
like
that.
you have to experiment and paint outside of the lines. And that's what a voice teacher and good coaches and some conductors are there to help you with. But in the beginning, voice teacher, you're there with your voice teacher. So if you're in your 20s and you're working on this, absolutely. I tell people experiment with everything. Experiment by drinking the night before you have a voice lesson. Experiment drinking milk or eating peanut butter before, because a lot of people just have these set rules that they've heard from others. Oh,
Yeah.
you can do this or this. Try it. Just try it. See what
Mhm.
happens. The tell is that at the end of your voice lesson, could you sing for another 15 minutes to an hour and feel fresh?
Fresh.
If
Yeah.
you get to the end of your voice lesson or the end of a practice session and you're like, I mean, as long as it's a reasonably timed practice session or rehearsal session, and you're like, you're doing something wrong. If you
Right.
get to the end and you feel like you could keep going, or unless there are extraneous factors like you're tired or you're sick, but with no extraneous factors, then yeah, it's yeah, you should absolutely experiment. And as soon as you find out something doesn't work for you, narrow that line in. And then, oh, it doesn't work this way. I'm gonna overemphasize the forward placement. I'm gonna sing more chiaro than scudo. And then you're like, okay, let's try scudo. Oh, it got me tired. Let's move it here. And then all of a sudden, you're talking about micro adjustments rather than macro adjustments.
I love that.
And let me just lay this out there real quick. So when we're talking about like the spectrum of ability in the voice, and say you want to do 100% chiaro or forward or nasal, we're not going to sing like that. Or if you want to do 100% pharyngeal or scudo or darken, that sort of thing. I like to think on that spectrum of 100% zero, or wait, I can't see, which way are you to me? Yeah, well, we'll just say 100% forward, 0% scudo. I like to be about 68 to 72% forward.
Mhm.
Easier to bring an overly brightened sound back than it is to bring an overly darkened sound forward.
100%. Lucas, you're preaching everything that I believe. I love that. I love that we're in tune. I agree 100%. You mentioned so many good things. First of all, I want to go back to something you mentioned. For any singers out there, perhaps that are struggling, I'm never going to badmouth any teacher. That's not the type of person I am. But if you are coming out of sessions or lessons, or if the way that you're singing is making you hoarse, or you sing for 10, 15 minutes and you're done, or you can't even get through an aria, I am a good believer that the body is the best teacher. And if your body is telling you, especially your voice, your larynx, it's telling you that this is unhealthy, perhaps you should think twice about what you're doing and perhaps find a different method or a different way of phonating that isn't so harmful. You need to listen to the body. The body should be your number one teacher. And I love how you said that. How you
Give it a few months too, because sometimes your teacher's working some kinks out that it's a little bit difficult. So if
Yeah,
you're with some when you're feeling this way, that might be normal for like a few
right.
months,
Yeah,
just to
yeah.
get through the hump of learning a new technique. But if you've been with them for a year or 2 years or more, and you're still feeling this, it might be time to change. And by the way, hola a todos. Es de Valencia.
I
Y
know, Spain.
Juan Alejandro. I just got back from Spain, so I like to think that my Spanish is somewhat passable right now.
You sang Sharpless there, Madama
Yeah.
Butterfly.
Oh my
Yeah, we
God.
were doing Butterfly together. Well, you were doing Butterfly in Spain. I was doing it in the UK. Was my debut as Pinkerton. Hopefully, we get to sing it together. That would be nice one day.
Dude, absolutely. The Spanish season for me, basically. I spent the summer in Madrid. I'm spending the fall in Barcelona, and just I'm gonna have paella coming out of my ears by the end of it.
But it's a beautiful. I love Madrid. Madrid is a gorgeous city. Very, very jealous. Um, so yeah. So you mentioned that another thing that you mentioned when it came to experimenting is I love that you said you have to kind of drive in the highway first to then get to the narrow road, and it is very much experimenting with the voice. So it's like a checklist. Like, okay, let me see how far I can take it, and then okay, this I felt the sensation. Check mark that was too much. Let me go back. And then let me go to the other extreme and check mark that, and kind of little by little feel where you are in that sort of balance. And I
Yeah,
used to believe that it was a 50-50. I would write like 50% chiaro, 50% oscuro, bright dark. But I'm with you now 100%. That's why I was smiling when you said it. More than ever, especially as tenors, we need a little bit more of that brightness quality, that squealo quality to the sound. I always like to say, like, follow the buzz. If you kind of start too dark already, oh, with this idea that we all hear, right? This lower of the larynx, lower the larynx, larynx needs to be low, larynx needs to be low, which indeed it does. However, there could be a danger to that, right? This idea of overcompression that gets a lot of singers stuck. So this, how you mentioned this idea of brightness, this more of this release sound that is really gonna help carry over the orchestra much better than some sort of
yeah.
dark.
The question you have to ask is why, or the question to answer for you and me is why. Why do we do that? And I've thought about it. I mean, we're very similar brains. We both obviously think about this stuff even when we're just sitting alone in a chair. I do too.
Neurotic.
And by the way, hola Joanne. So good to see everybody here. So all right, here's why. So the fact is that opera houses change in size. American opera houses are bigger than European opera houses, and it's mostly because the opera houses here are newer and they have more seats. They're just newer, and the opera houses there are older. But in addition to that, you hear people that I sort of call it a bit of an Eastern European, Slavic, Russian-y sort of sound that isn't just across the board, but I hear it a bit more of a pharyngeal, of a more scudo in the sound.
Mhm.
And that can work really well. Let's take Dmitry Vorstovsky for example. He had a very scuro sound. And his voice in a house, when I heard, first of all, one of the greatest. He's awesome. He's wonderful. I'll just say that I love Dimitri. He's a friend.
Right.
He was anyway. We knew each other, and his voice was always medium in a house consistently, and never got to the your ears really hearing the sort of very very present sound, like Sandra Rodvanovsky or Piotr Bajala, for example. These guys, the way they're singing right now, it just cuts through everything. And the thing is, if you're going to sing in houses that are about 16 to 1,800 seats or less, that technique will work for you. And you will be able to sing a forte in a 1,600 seat house. But as soon as you get to 2,000, your forte becomes mezzo forte. And anything above 2,800 or 3,000 becomes mezzo.
Yeah.
And it's less and less. However, if you think like we obviously think together, is that that's more of a focused laser sound. And I'm not saying that you lose the open throat, that you lose the relaxed to slightly lowered larynx feel. You have to marry these two things at the same time throughout your entire register. You don't have to. But for me, I like to choose to do that. And I end up a little more forward, which is why everyone's called me, not everyone, but many people have called me a tenor when I was younger, because I didn't sacrifice the purity and focus of my sound in order to imitate a darkened sound or in order to create a darkened sound. I was always told that with age it would come, and now it has. I'm 46 years old. I'm singing Verdi in cool places, and it's because I waited. I just sang with my voice, Mozart and Rossini, and sometimes a little Donizetti or a little French or a little Tannhäuser, only Wagner I touch, or whatever. But I sang some, not even just lighter repertoire, but just repertoire that wasn't as full as Verdi and Wagner and some of the bigger bel canto stuff. And now I'm in the Puccini world, big time, and I'm moving into Verdi. So you have time. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. But if you choose, you get to choose. You get to pick which one you want to be. And one of them, and I think that the other sound records really well, because you don't pick up that ping on a record quite as well as you do a rounded sort of more darkened sound. So there's a balance to be found here.
Yeah. Lucas here is now talking about even more in-depth stuff that a lot of people don't know about, the whole recording world aspect to it, and how that's like a whole other sort of color that even they demand too. But no, I agree 100% to about everything you're talking about. This ability really to find this chord closure in the sound and do it in a way that's healthy, because in the end, like you mentioned, it is a marathon. And if you are, when you start out young, most of us always are drawn, for the most part, not everyone, but we're always drawn to the bigger, heftier, exciting roles. Puccini, Verdi, it's like, right? Which again, there are certain voices that can do it earlier on. However, there's nothing wrong with maintaining a healthy equilibrium of repertoire and a healthy approach to singing, because in the end, it's about making it to the end, not just about who gets there faster, but just who gets there. And in a world where a lot of singers do seem to start kind of dying out, or the voices start to kind of get some sort of danger or unhealthiness to it, and you can start to hear it is quite, I think, important to think about healthy ways of and approaching singing in a healthy way. And how you're mentioning it, a lot of it has to do with just exploring your natural sound, not about imitating or mimicking or over darkening to try to sound older, but just being okay with how you sound now. And if it's not like Del Monaco and Corelli or Robert Merrill, oh, I want that sound. It's okay, right? You don't have to be that. You just have to be the best you. We do have a question from an audience member. So one of them is asking, from the Princeton English Institute. I see that one asked, I'm I have a problem when I'm trying to cover, right? Cover in the passaggio seems to be always a big issue. I tend to kind of sing more ingolato. Everything seems to kind of go back in the throat. And I guess what he's trying to ask is perhaps tips that about how to perhaps fix that issue or be able to cover in a way that doesn't seem to get stuck or ingolato or in the back of the throat.
Yeah, that's deep. That's definitely deep.
Yeah, big
Into that.
com.
I just want to hit on what you ended on because
Okay.
there's points I want to bring up about what you said, which are the first is every single person, we have our own unique thumbprint, you know? Like if we go and we steal something, they can lift our print, find out who we are because nobody in the world has the same thumbprint as us.
Right.
And when I was a young artist, I thought, what makes famous singers famous? And in my opinion, it's that they only sound like themselves. They sound unique. You hear them for a second, you think that's Pavarotti, that's Delmonico, that's Merrill, that's whoever it is, that's Capocilli. You sort of know in an instant right who it is because they only sing with their sound. So you have to know that no one else has this. So what makes you special is only sounding like yourself. And the second part to that is that that comes with a lot of trust, not just vocal trust, but trust in yourself that you as a human are enough in your own shoes.
Mhm.
And that takes so much work and effort and trust and time and strength. And it's a very difficult thing because when we show our voices, we're showing a piece of ourself. We're not out there. We can't blame it on we can't blame it on a piano. We can't blame it on a trumpet or a violin. We're literally bearing our souls, the
Right.
ends of our bodies to an audience. We're giving them our life's breath, literally. And so there's a lot that goes into that, you know, that is very personal. And so you have to really believe in yourself in order to give it back. And anyway, now let's get to that question. So I'd say that if you are sort of swallowing your sound, I would take it from one extreme that you get caught in to the other and try some very forward exercises to begin with. For instance, a really just overly nasal nyam 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 nyam. Really concentrate on the nya.
Mhm.
And if it's happening on the passaggio, that normally means that you're bringing weight up in the middle voice. Let's see, does this person say baritone or tenor? Probably,
Yeah, but
probably a
sure.
tenor.
I don't know if it's tenor or baritone either.
Well, anyway, if you're let's imagine you are a tenor, okay, and your passaggio, your cover begins at F sharp. Cover is not 0 or 100%. As a matter of fact, what I think of as cover at F sharp for a tenor is 2%. I don't even say cover really. I say cover to sort of generalize. I
Mhm.
think three things that need to happen as soon as you hit the passaggio. You need to open more the space between the molars back in the back. The space gets more. I like to think that always you have space between the back molars. An analogy is that you have two wine corks between your back molars. So it's
Yeah.
always here. And if you're at home and you're doing this and you're looking around, you want to find that exact perfect position for ah in middle and low voice. Open your mouth. You can do this at home. Take your fingers, put it
Mhm.
right. Do it with me, Jose, so we show everybody. Open your jaw until you feel a pocket form. You feel the pocket? All right, so that's really loud. Ah, there's the pocket. Now close your jaw slowly, and as soon as that pocket closes, is the perfect distance from the molars to have the molars apart for an ah vowel in middle and low. All right. Did
Uh,
the pocket close? Open. Do you find the pocket? Find the pocket.
yeah, yeah, I'm trying to find.
So when you open the jaw
Uh,
here, a pocket forms right here.
uh-huh.
Slowly close it,
Hey,
and
keep that open.
yeah, as soon as that pocket closes, that's how you find a
Uh,
good.
got it. When it closes, gotcha.
Now, starting from that position, as you go into passaggio, you gradually open more and more. So if I'm a tenor and I'm going up to a high C, here's F sharp. And I'm sort of open here. The other thing, so that's number one. Second thing is you want to think as you're going to lift here as you go up, and I'm going to do this as a baritone this time because it's so I'm and as I'm here, I have both lift here and here. And now the most important thing, that's that snarl thing that people
Yeah.
you know.
Oh,
And
I love that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll talk about more about that, but yeah, keep going, keep going. It's gold, gold.
is modify the vowel. Modifies to All right, if it's a bunch of tenors here, just modify to you'll be fine. But if anybody else is here, E modifies to modifies to the German schön.
Mhm.
So as you go up, so you're opening more, you're modifying. But here's the biggest part of who we're talking to about this. The biggest part, Princeton English Institute. All right, Pay. I'll call you Pay. Hey, so here's the thing. This E natural or your F sharp, if you're a tenor, it's not 90%. It's not even 50. It's not even 10% cover. It's not even 10% vowel modification. It's 2%, 2 to 4. So it's 4%, maybe 5 to 8, and that's on F sharp. So I'm already 3 half steps into my passaggio, and I'm like 8%. So when you're at the top, it's not 100% cover. It's like 20% vowel modification.
Right.
It's not so anyway, so a lot of people just go a little too far with it.
Yes. That's so you really hit it on the nail. A lot of what we talk about, a lot of singers talk about, especially when they try to teach, is subtle. It's subtle. The thing is that we naturally go too far.
He just said he's a bass. So
He's okay.
Probably D natural or so. All right. So that's where you cover. But anyway, you can apply it all to the same thing. Just think the vowel modification is simply happening slowly. So it's always forward, and you add the back space rather than going entirely back and losing the forward space. It's that again, chiaroscuro, bow and arrow. Excuse me, Jose, for interrupting.
No worries. I was just gonna say that everything we talk about is very subtle, but we always tend to want to overdo it, which is natural. Okay, don't frustrate yourself, or don't get angry with yourself, because like I said, we tend to want to hit the extremes, and then little by little we realize that's too much. We got to back it out. Like you said, 20%, no, too much. 15, still too much. 10, still too much. 5, still too much. 2, until we realize the subtlety of all these concepts and how they apply in the voice. When it comes to the pocket, I used to actually do one of these little. Here, I have a little bottle here, and even I do it still today at times. And I don't know if you heard about this one. I kind of grab the cap of like a little bottle, and sometimes like you can put it in your front teeth or in that sort of jaw area.
Oh yeah.
To kind of as a reminder, so that you're never completely open or too dark. You just kind of have the right amount of space, and it's a reminder to keep kind of this area, open as well, which is great, especially for the middle.
Exactly. Yeah, a bottle cap. I mean, as long as you have the same bottle cap everywhere you go,
it's like a cork, like you said, the 2 corks here. Yeah.
It's like you don't want to. Oh, that one's smaller. That's why I like this one, is because your pocket's always going to close at the exact same place.
Yeah.
And a faster way to find it once you've sort of figured this out is if you put your head back and let your jaw relax and then just replace your head like that. That's the way to go.
Yeah, love that. Love all these tips. You also mentioned something very important, I think, both for all voices, the snarl, and that's something again that I have come across in recent years, because I didn't always. I mean, you know how it is too. Like even once you reach a certain level, you were always learning, and I'm constantly adapting my technique all the time. This idea of this sort of internal smile, so the kind of very fisichella, very gedda, very smile to the sound, so that it's for a lot of voices are always kind of too far dark, right? In order to have that beautiful Italian vowel clarity, not but there's kind of like that internal snarl where we can feel that buzz. It's sort of in that buzzy area, never so that it never goes back. And I feel like there seems to be a similarity in a lot of voices, and even in great baritones, that keep, like you said, keep that brightness, keep that vowel clarity. Which I don't know. Do you use that snarl? How do you approach that idea of that it's sort of internal smile?
Yeah, I just always think light, bright, forward. I think that I just need to constantly be sending sound out. And if you do that, you can choose to cover. You can cover. I can cover a little lower. Sometimes I'll use as an effect, instead of decrescendoing with air, or I'll decrescendo with cover. So if I get up to like, and I'll cover more to taper off the sound.
Yeah.
And then, like we said, the more you cover, the more you cover the sound, the less it's going to sound in the hall, because you're taking the point off the sound. You're just taking the gas off a little bit. And I don't know, it's an interesting way to think about things. But I think for the most part, I mean, really, what it comes down to, if the audience can hear you better, do that.
Right.
Just do it the best.
Yeah. Well, we realize that really the ping, the squealo, is really how you mentioned then it's the brightness of the sound. Once we start to lose that, we start to lose the sound in the hall. So which is very good. A lot of people also don't realize that, because many haven't even gotten the chance to be up on stage yet. We're still, as developing singers, a lot of my time was in a practice room or a living room or in the
Yeah.
shower, and then
Or
you get up on
bring
stage.
your lines. You're bringing
Yeah.
in your yeah.
Then you get up on stage, and then you learn that way too. You're like a whole new experience, and then it's with orchestra, and it's just like whoa. So it's a constant developing process. Let's, if it's okay with you as well, keep answering some of these
Yeah.
questions.
Question.
Um,
Yeah.
so Milton, let me go back a little bit more, making sure that okay. Milton Lemon Pie, love that. Is asking, do you use semi-occluded vocal track exercises, as in like straws, etc.?
I'm not against it, but I don't use it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not against it, but yeah, no, it's never not like I've seen some people use marbles and things in their
Yeah.
mouth. Yeah, like you use the little bottle
Little
cap.
cup.
I don't really do it. I kind of like I don't know. I just never did. And also Richard, just before we got Richard McCowan Clark asking, is it possible that a baritone can
Ah,
develop bass baritone in later years? And then he says, of course, without over darkening the voice, which is exactly what we're talking about, which
right.
is a great. So Richard, my thoughts on that is like I said at the beginning, it's all about what you are in here, physically. Like if imagine if your dead body was lying on a slab and somebody took air and pushed it through your cords and they had to come together, what kind of sound would you make? Would you go or would you go it's like you are who you are. And so
Right.
of course, if you started out as a baritone and your voice sort of more matures a little bit and you figure out more how to sing, and all of a sudden lower repertoire is a little easier for you, then absolutely. The answer to what voice type you are all begins in an honest assessment and where your passaggio begins. If your passaggio begins at E natural or E flat, you could be a baritone. If it's E flat, you could potentially be a bass baritone too. That's kind of true. But if you have trouble forcing your voice to not cover up to like an F sharp, F, then you could be a
Uh-huh.
bass. I mean, forcing it, like literally,
Or kind of keep belting it, pretty much,
huh?
like kind of belting it in a way. Upward.
Yeah, just not allowing your voice to shift. Like,
Right.
so it's A major, I'm going to go up to the E, and then I'll go F, F sharp to sort of keep it in that spot. See, normally I'd have that 2% cover, or
Yeah.
potentially.
Yeah.
I was just struggling to keep it forward there instead of
Yeah.
turning it.
Turns now. Yeah.
Okay, so it really depends on where your passaggio begins. If you figure out the answer to that question, you will have the answer to whether or not you're a bass baritone or a baritone.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. Also, tagging back on the previous question about straws, I was introduced to it as well. I tried some of it, but this is also for everyone watching. Try things out. Try things out. I think the straws. There was a moment where it helped me. Sometimes they introduce a very small straw with a very tiny hole. This is just for you to focus the breath, so it doesn't come out in a puff of air, like. But in order to actually focus the air, so you actually start to feel your appoggio engagement, and you start to get more engaged with the body. Then there's the one with a straw in which you blow bubbles inside a cup, and to kind of feel the air flowing through so that it never stops flowing. There's things with cups so that the breath. There's a lot of crazy things. Some of them I think are helpful. Some of them are, I don't know. But I say try them out. Try them out. See if you get epiphanies. I'm a huge epiphany person. Like even when I started studying myself, I would take voice lessons from everybody I could. Not not in a way that would confuse me, even though there was a lot of confusion when it comes to the tenor voice, but in a way that I would just try things and get everyone's opinions, but then I would go home, and then after I tried them, I formulated my own, and in a way, I it opens your viewpoint to a lot of things when you just again, like we talked about, experiment with the voice, experiment with things. Um, let's see. I thought I saw another question.
Gaspar, and also we learned Princeton's name. His name's Pablo. Hey,
Ah,
Pablo.
Pablo. Nice to meet you, Pablo. Here. Hello, Kaspar. Hello, 18-year-old aspiring singer from Germany here. I wanted to ask how to prevent consonants uh, from from closing throat space and interrupting legato phrases. Yes.
Oh, that's a great question. As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, specialty of mine, and I even call it something. I have a technique, I guess you could call it, that I've developed. It's called intelligently lazy diction, which means really it's much easier to do in Italian than some other languages. So we'll just take Italian and let's go largo al factotum. Okay, largo. So the L, the first consonant has to begin before the note on the first. So if it's largo factotum della città. So double consonants you got to do. Rolled R's you got to do. Raddoppiamento sintattico or phrasal doubling you can do if it makes sense in the phrase. But everything else, pretty much everything else needs to be, that's the intelligent part. So that's the intelligent part. Everything else can be lazy. So I have when I hear people do this, I have them just keep their mouth open for the entire time they're singing.
Yeah.
The largo factotum della città, largo. I have to sing a phrase by doing that.
Yeah.
All right. Keep your space open. And then eventually you can get to this thing, intelligent lazy diction. It's a deep dive down into this intelligent lazy diction thing. So do you notice I'm going largo? I'm not going go. I'm largo.
Singing the vowels. Singing the vowels.
Singing on the vowels. I mean that's the most important thing is just keep. And that's what I accomplish by doing intelligently lazy diction is I stay on the vowels for longer. However, to be understood, I have to go della città. You know, but
double.
Of della, who cares? The ch of città, who cares? So you can break it down to largo, the first L, the rolled R, the G, forget it. Okay, go largo al, forget that L, largo al fa, forget that, forget to, forget tum, forget everything. Del, forget that. Double L, remember that. Ch, forget, double T, remember that, and then you're through.
No, fantastic advice. I may get in trouble for saying this. I don't know. I've always been the type of singer who I would never sacrifice sound quality for diction. I know. A lot of people, there's French coaches, Russian coaches, you must do like this. But if it starts to tighten your voice and your sound, and then you're up on stage and you're just having a horrible time because you're stuck with all this diction and everything is very bitey, then what's the point? I always say, the way at least I approach it too, which I love, it's very much in line with what you're saying, is if I'm having a problem with an aria in which the consonants are getting in the way, for example, something like questa quella, which is very bitey, questa quella per me parisono, sing everything in a vowel, just one vowel, to get the feeling of what it feels like to just sing the aria with no words. Then just take the vowels of the word. So if it's like questa quella or largo factotum, what is it? Largo factotum. I'm not a baritone. Whatever it is. Or questa quella. Questa quella. Because I have it more engraved in my mind.
Better.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like and sing it, everything, like you said, lazy legato. And then add the words. And when you add the consonants, don't let it break. Don't let it break what you achieved before. So sing through the aria with the vowels, then add the consonants, and then do this whole consonant laziness, all these things that is just about keeping the sound on the vowels and not
lazy. Intelligently lazy.
Intelligently lazy.
Don't forget the intelligent part.
Yes.
I mean, think about it. What is going to sound more in a hall? A voiced consonant or unvoiced? The voiced consonant is always going to, so instead of questa quella, put a G on it. Questa quella per me. And from 10 feet away, people will be like, what are you doing? And from 100 feet away, they'll be like, what perfect diction.
Yeah, exactly.
Luckily, you have an orchestra in front of you that's 10 feet away. They're the only ones that will be able to.
I was just going to say, that's the only people that are 10 feet away. The orchestra.
Yeah. Like, for instance, the Count's aria. Jubilar, mi fa, that fucking F gets in front of everybody. Fa, mi va. If you got mi va, if you voice that fa, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah. Actually, I remember when I did also in the UK, the first time doing Pinkerton, the addio aria, addio fiorito asil, squalor at the end. Addio, non reggo al tuo squalor. And I was listening to other singers too. I'm like, I don't think anybody really sings it like clear there. It's like really, it's almost impossible. If you try, you get stuck. So there's ideas of kind of modifying certain vowels as well and kind of dropping things that you don't need. Like you said, intelligently planning it out in a lazy manner. I
Have a
don't.
plan. Have a
Yeah,
plan.
I
By
have
the way, I have to bring this up. This is the perfect place to get out my frustration with people calling that an aria. Addio fiorito zil. All right, that's a duet. Hello, Pinkerton. You're on stage
okay,
with
true.
somebody singing
It is.
all as much as you in the same amount of time. Okay, it's a duet. You can
It is.
you want to do an album or something, but it's a duet, and Sharp there with you on stage and singing.
Yes, that is true. It is a
All right,
duet.
I'm
My
off
apologies.
box.
Indeed, it is. Next,
By the way, Pablo for the kind words. I appreciate it.
you guys recorded yourself while listening and then felt like killing you. That's funny. He was just saying, have you ever recorded yourselves listening and then felt like killing yourself? Yes, 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 I have at least. Um, question. Chilean Turner, just want to say you guys are truly inspirational. Thank you, Jose. Trying to see if you guys are both legends. Just wondering how and why. Okay, here's a good question. Ricky Moreira, you guys are both legends. Thanks for just wondering how and why is the E vowel so difficult? Any advice? For me, the only vowel that closes its space. Yeah, and also spreads. E. Yeah, right. True.
All right,
Yeah,
all right. First of all, E is not E. E is not E. E
never.
is E.
Yeah.
E. You sing an E with an open mouth on your middle and low voice. All right, and you can okay. I call this like the nebula. I'm gonna do an exercise for you. I'm gonna sing from ah, e, o to oo, and I
Mhm.
just want you to hear how these vowels are all in the same shape. All right. Not E.
E. Right.
So all these vowels, if they have a similar shape to them, I'm not saying every E has to be there. If you're doing Mozart recitative, you got to sing E. Okay, you
Right.
just got. But if you're singing a bel canto aria, keep that vowel in line with everything else. I O, not I E O.
Right.
All
Yeah.
right. E and oo are the peskiest of vowels, and so for E, we just make sure we have an open jaw when we sing it, and don't do too much smile. Then oo, oo is simply O with rounded lips. Let me listen. Oh, the voice goes away. Oh, if I just round my lips around an O, I get a oo. It's
Mm-hmm.
so hard to trust that that works, but promise it does.
Yeah. No.
What do you
100%.
think?
Yeah, 100%. I like to keep everything in this sort of column of space, how you mentioned it, so that it never breaks the column. So if you're going you broke it. You spread, you went horizontal. Don't let it go there ever. Keep it everything in line, everything in that column of space, just how Lucas demonstrated. It's fantastic. It's keeping everything round and never letting a vowel what's the word come out or bring too much attention to itself. You know what I mean? Like again, if you're doing a phrase like I don't know, pensier or something like that, or when you have an a and an a, don't let the a break out of that beautiful column of line, vertical column of space that you created. You know, a pensier, never you're gonna find yourself squeezing because you're trying to go horizontal.
Though the
Finding
eval, I found the eval easier in the passaggio and above because you can simply cover and then all of a sudden it sort of fits into a
if
spot.
you yeah if
For
you tune it rounder,
eval,
yeah.
I mean, it's il mio tesoro. It's not
Yeah.
il mio tesoro,
Yeah.
il mio
Yeah.
tesoro. So it's not it's il
Yeah.
mio tesoro. So you're not going from I mean, you'll be. It's like you're chewing cud as a
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah. Everything right. It's everything in the same space, and it goes to do a lot with the fact that the vowels they're really produced here. The only the back of the tongue is really functioning, so you can really relax all of this and really sing. Without going, you don't need all this. You can keep this all relaxed, and it's the back of the tongue that's doing the work, really, to do the vowels. That's it. Don't squeeze it. Don't squeeze it, which is fantastic. So you got this is maybe let's see. Help me out here, Lucas, too, because I'm on my phone. I'm trying to read the questions. Everything's so tiny. If you guys have you guys ever had consistent
Uh,
breaks in formation?
Logan, hey Logan.
Yeah, from Logan Ride. Hope I'm saying that right. Yeah, they're not cracks, but more like blips. The stupid things. Like everything is going good and then blip, a break in phonation. Trying to understand perhaps what he's talking about. Blips. Like a little, but not a crack. He's saying they're not cracks, just blips. Perhaps like a laryngeal.
That's all I could think of. That's
Yeah,
exactly.
like a little kind of wild.
When I think, oh, you know what? I feel like maybe I should mark this because I'm not in the best vocal place, and that's when my little blips happen rather than a
Yeah.
crack. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you know what? It's just normal. And the younger you are, the more you're going to have, and the more you sing on your core, the less blips I have. Really, it's all about breath support for me and blips.
Yeah. A lot of blips too also happen because, well, anytime the larynx cracks or shifts, perhaps it's under too much tension. And so it switches to falsetto and then resets back to the chest. So you get a little blicks. So perhaps it's a little bit of a registered problem too, in which you're singing something or you're singing something too tense, and so the larynx wants to jump up a little bit. So for that, I would just say as well, like Lucas says, make sure everything is very much well engaged. At least I hope that's what you mean by a bleep. Um, let's see. Q light tenor with non does a voice the flip turn on the A vowel. Any advice on upper or okay,
How
Alejandro. Yeah,
starting
is
on
it?
F sharp? Yeah, if you're a Rossini tenor or a high tenor, I mean, if you're like I don't know, who Larry Brownlee, John Osborne, who am I? Yeah. Anyway, now high tenor, then yeah, G. F sharp's not far from G, but I would say that you need to establish in your warm up routine, which
Hmm.
is the most important part of my singing career, my warm up routine, because it helps me. And I hated warming up when I was younger. I just wanted to skip right to the singing part. I was like, this is stupid. I don't want
No.
to. But the warm up routine, day in and day out, is what tells you where you're going to be and what you need for the day ahead, or for the show ahead, or the rehearsal ahead, or whatever it is. So, anyway, in your warm up routine, where I like keeping it light, bright, forward. As a matter of fact, I've got a whole slew of stuff on warming up. I like to think when I'm warming up for the first stages of my warm ups, I'm actually a half a Fach to a Fach higher than I actually am.
Mhm.
So, if you're a Rossini tenor, it's hard to go any higher than that. But like, just imagine you are. But when you really start getting into things and you're singing, I would set up, this is going to be where my cover starts. And if it starts on G, let it start on G,
Mhm.
but and then be F sharp, I want it wide open. And if you can do F sharp for me, unless I'm singing Verdi, unless I'm trying to accomplish something in my warm-ups, I begin my cover on F and E natural, I am wide open. So for this, I'm and then I'm in a different place between these half step. So for you, I wouldn't think, oh, I'm just going to go down and now I'll think even less cover. Just be 100% open on F sharp if that works for you.
Yeah, that's actually how I warm up. I actually try to keep well this sort of not completely open. Not not never that, but this idea of never turning it to or overturning the F sharp. And again, like you said, this is how I do it in my warm up. I just it's also a personal thing in which I feel that this has a little bit more presence and it's more free and easy for me than something like where it's a little bit more covered. And so depending on how I see, like you said, depending on the style of music, like Verdi, if I'm singing Verdi or something like Verdi Requiem, I might end up covering the F sharp. But just for warm up purposes, I like
Yes.
to keep it a little open. I like to keep it
Warm up,
open.
open vowels. Again, even if it's a closed vowel, you might cover it here. But for warm up, when you're just in the beginning and you're trying to
Yep.
figure things out, always it needs to be consistent. Where make a choice. Just make a
Yeah.
choice and be consistent with it. But yeah, absolutely. There, can be open, and then we're going to cover. And when I say 100% open, I mean exactly like what you did. I don't mean ah. I just
Yeah.
mean a pure ah vowel without any.
Right, exactly. Let's see if we could do one more question because I know we're running out of time here. I love this one by Hector Agredano. Any advice for learning an opera role for the first time? I'm singing Rodolfo from La Boheme at my university with a full orchestra. I'm a bit worried about all the Italians. Indeed, yes, Rodolfo does sing a lot and talk a lot. Go ahead, Lucas. You start. You're the guest, and then I'll tag on this. But you have
Well,
much more.
Hector, I don't want to tease you too much, but I'm literally writing a book about this right now. It's coming
Uh-huh.
out book, and it's all about role preparation with a cheat sheet there and everything. It probably won't be out in time for your performance, so apologies, but it'll be here soon, buddy. I mean, role prep. I can get as deep or as shallow as you like. You know, I mean, for me, I even start by saying, what kind of edition? The first thing you need to ask yourself, what edition of the score you're going to get. You know, and then it's, you know, I guess if I kept it simple, I'd say I don't care about listening to recordings because I'm at a place where I don't imitate anymore. I
Mhm.
just feel good ideas and then try and create some of my own as well. So if you're at a place where you don't imitate, I like to first of all listen to the score while highlighting it. Listen to the score again while highlighting in a different color all the accents, the tenuti, the fermati, the any sort of stage. There are a lot of stage directions in La Boheme for every character, and if you have your name up there, highlight it. Tempi changes if they're crazy, in a different color again. So that's 2 times you listen to the score, then listen to the score again, different recording, and translate everything. Oh, before I do that, actually, excuse me, before I get into that, I tab my score. My scores, do I have one here? My scores are pieces of art, like almost like I took a ruler with each tab and made them fit absolutely perfect. I feel like the better prepared your score is, I feel the better performance you're going to give out of that score, you know? So, yeah. And then once you've sort of gotten it all, you know, highlighted, translated, you begin to work on it. And I like to start arias, duets, recits that are important to me, then trios, quartets, and big ensembles. So yeah, you know, figure out the best way to work through things. And I mean, it's just such a vast question, you know. I don't know, Jose. Why don't you jump in and fill in the
Uh,
blanks?
Honestly, I think it's very interesting. I love actually hearing other people and their process because everybody's process is a little bit different. I'm actually ashamed to even talk about mine because you're so professional. Like your scores, I've seen singers with scores with all the labels highlighted, translations. Mine's don't look anything like that. I think I'm a little lazy more in the preparation because I like to feel it in the body. So yes, if I'm cracking open a new score, first thing I do highlight what the heck it is that I'm singing. Then I start to learn notes and rhythms with the score. In other words, in my mind, I want to know, can I sing this opera from the beginning to the end, looking at it, like if I was like in a chorus part or you know what I mean, or singing with the music, can I do that? And as that happens, which already takes quite a lot of time, just preparing the notes, the rhythms, um, mouthing the words to it too, without memorizing yet. But for some weird case, at least in my brain, in my mind, when I do it that way, by the time I go back and I tell myself now I'm going to memorize the language, most of it is actually already in there. So I don't know if it's just something particular of mine that like that I see something and I can somewhat retain it. If it's of course, if it's Italian, which I'm very much familiar with. If it's something like Russian or Czechoslovakian, then I'm totally screwed. I have to kind of pivot and really take my time with all the words and the translations, and then grab all the castels and figure out what it is. But at least I've gone to the point in Italian and most basic things like languages and opera where I can somewhat prepare the role a little bit quicker than most because I'm familiar with the language. But as far as Hector, if this is your first Italian role, it's just gonna take time, and I hope you do have that time, like Lucas
Make a
says,
make a schedule.
to
Say
make
I'm
it.
this at a certain amount of time. You want to be fully memorized with your score at least 2 weeks before the first day of rehearsal.
That's a good idea. I totally agree for that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And for me as well, like I said, have the music not so much like notes and rhythms to the point that when you actually get to the rehearsal process, you really know the music. Like you don't even need to look at the score. It's really internal. You could be because that's the artistic part of it. We've been talking so much technical aspects of the voice, but in the end, that's only one side of the coin. The second, the other side is the artistic part. What's your interpretation of Rodolfo that's going to be different from everybody else that has sung the role? At least that's sort of the way I see it too. Um, so
Prepared to
I
change if the director says, we're not doing that. You're going to be in love with Marcello. So, you know,
Yeah, absolutely. Lucas, I think we're running out of time. I could talk to you for hours, my friend. And I'm so glad we actually met. We met in this live, in this YouTube live. I'm the crazy person that sent him an email. I'll be like, "Hey, Lucas, come and do this live with me. We have to get together." I hadn't met you, but I knew that just from watching you and your fun personality that you were just gonna be great. It was gonna be great to have you on board.
Nice.
Uh,
Great,
thanks
man.
for. I know you're a super busy guy. Um, I would love to talk to you at some point as well, as far as which we never got to do in this video. I should have asked you, like demonstrations, like your warm ups and things like that. But it's fine. We could do it another time. Thanks again. Thanks to everybody else for tuning in. And Lucas, I wish you the best also in this new season. I hope we get to sing together at some point. That would be
Great.
fantastic. Um, and I was kind of looking at the bio, trying to see if there's actually anything that we might be close by. But anyways, at some point, if you're up for it, we could do another sort of session, another live, because it's just awesome to get to talk to you and kind of tune
And
around.
it was so great having great questions from everybody, like Pablo and Hector. And anyway, thanks so much for everyone for your questions. Sorry, did dark ones. We didn't quite get to your last one, but anyway, talk a little bit about it at the beginning. So if you back it up, I'm sure you'll see it. Anyway, thanks a lot. Been great.
Alrighty, Lucas. Have an awesome day. Fantastic. I'll see you next. Right?
Yeah.
We'll stay in touch. Ciao, ciao, ciao. Thanks.
Yeah.